to Food for Thought, and congratulations for joining us for the concluding session of this series. This week, we're going to recap on the content of each week so far before our final speaker shares their presentation. Our course began on World Food Day with a live online event. The theme of World Food Day for 2023 was Water is Life, Water is Food, Leave No One Behind. Our speakers responded to this theme with their presentations on the importance of availability of water in arid regions, water, sanitation and hygiene programs in Malawi, and keyhole garden projects in Ethiopia. The following week, we took a closer look at food systems and trade with presentations on the supply chains of fair trade and fair chain products. Next, we looked at the links between gender equality and food security. We heard about the challenges that can be present for women who don't have equal opportunities in farming and food enterprise, and the benefits when equality is achieved. The next session had a focus on enterprise, and in particular on the Enterprise Zambia Challenge Fund. After learning about the farming context and benefit of value add for communities in rural Zambia, we heard about two companies in this challenge fund and their food products. The It's Wild range from Komako and Nukamo Enterprises. Food security, climate change, and global supply chains are interconnected and complex. The impact of events in one country can affect many communities, even though they may be geographically distant. To represent current events, for a particular week on the course, we shared a selection of recent media concerning food. From a mid-year update from the Global Report on Food Crisis, a TED Talk on how growing rice could make a cleaner world, and a podcast on food in Kenya. These were just some of the pieces that we shared with you. Throughout each episode in this series, the importance of farming sustainably has been emphasised as crucial to the future of food security. And now for our final presentation, it features Generosa Calabrese from the International Centre for Advanced Mediterranean Agronomic Studies. Jenny will cover environment and natural resource management, along with food security, safety and nutrition. Within this presentation, you'll hear about the impacts of climate change in Africa and the Mediterranean, farming practices intended to adapt to climate change, and you'll be introduced to agroecological approaches and long-term advantages of farming in this way. We hope you enjoy this session.
Thank you for inviting me and thank you for being here. I'm Jenny Calabrese, I'm an agronomist, and my personal field of expertise ranges from biodiversity to agroecology. I work at the Mediterranean Agronomic Institute of Bari in Italy, that is one of the 4 units of CIHEAM. Our headquarters is in Paris, and the other institutes are in Kenya, Greece, Saragossa, Spain, and Montpellier, France. We work on cooperation, research, and postgraduate education, and our teams work on a number of projects that deal with research and cooperation. Mediterranean is our historical area of intervention, but we also work and are present in other countries and regions in the world. Today, I will start talking on the impact of climate change in Africa and in the Belt region. Then I will mention some action to counter the impact on the farming system and explore a more holistic approach to farm management that could be useful to improve productivity of farming system, contributing to face drought events and increasing long-term resilience of smallholder farmers when in case of recurring droughts. Drought is a natural temporary imbalance of water availability characterized by prolonged absence of precipitation and by a period of dry weather long enough to cause serious hydrological imbalance. The term describes a situation in which water is strongly limiting factor to achieve a produce. Aridity refers instead to a permanent imbalance in the availability of water, and it's usually when the annual precipitation is low. Aridity is measured by the ratio between precipitation and plant potential evapotranspiration, and on the base of the aridity, climatic zones are defined. This is the map of climatic zone in the Mediterranean area, where we can see that aridity is a prevailing feature. And in the last year, drought and unpredictable events are occurring more frequently, and drought events last for more longer period due to the climate change. Definitions of droughts can be many. Some go on meteorological one to the socioeconomic one, accounting the cost of the climate of the drought. But in agriculture, we mostly refer to agricultural droughts that occurs when available water for plants falls below the amount required during a critical growth stage, and this leads to a decrease of yield. Climate change is a change in a state of climate characteristic that is statistically detectable and can be statistically identified. The effects of climate change are now evident in all countries of the world, but direct and indirect effects can have different impacts. In some regions and countries, climate change brings negative but also positive effects. But in some other, climate change brings only negative effect. This is what the graph C shows. Instead, from the graph B, we can see that the negative effect appear weighed mainly on the region of the world least responsible for the changes taking place and which contribute least to greenhouse gas emission. Africa and the southern shore of Mediterranean are among the regions that suffer most from negative effect of changes and frequent period of drought. And the cost of drought, not only in economic terms, but also in terms of human lives, are increasing in time, so that traditional response of providing emergency assistance is not enough to reach the Sustainable Development Goal. Researchers, the FAO, United Nations, have identified ways to reduce the risk of negative impact of unpredictable drought on the climate chain on the farming system. These actions include integrated water soil management practice, increase water availability and efficiency, and drought-resistant seeds. Those general solutions need to be adapted to specific farming system and context in target manner. And this is why projects are developed and to tailor the solution to the different local context. There are many ways to decrease water losses and increase water distribution and efficiency, but when water resources are scarce, the commonly used conventional water resources, such as rainwater or river runoff, are not sufficient to meet the growing demand in water-scarce areas. That's why researchers are working to enable a paradigm shift, including unconventional water resources, together with innovative and technological solutions to reduce the pressure on fresh water. On the same trend line, also the Medway CAP project focus on urban and peri-urban agriculture, whose importance is considerably growing in the Med and African countries to adopt a safe use of non-conventional waters and also to include non-conventional water resources and technologies in planning strategies for water use. Talking about the action about drought-resistant seeds, we know that local varieties are often more resistant to drought events, and also the ones that local people like to use for food in everyday diets. In Tunisia, the Tunisia Phytogenetic Resource Better Conserved and Valorized project mapped and characterized 68 local varieties belonging to olive, fig, almond, citrus, grain, legumes, and wheat accession. And those local varieties were conserved from farm guardian farmers, important for both for the diet of local population, for their cultural identity, and for local economy. And those varieties will contribute to the resilience of the farming system. There were most relevant achievements from this project. The Guardian farmers were ready to contribute and were very collaborative in sharing their local varieties they were saving. The project contributed to pave the way to include farmer knowledge on selection and phenotyping of traditional varieties in the National Gene Bank procedure. And we also managed to include the concept of genetic erosion to rank and prioritize conservation and multiplication effort, so to grant seed availability of the preferred varieties to farmers. We also promote on-farm conservation, participatory breeding, and sustainable use of those local varieties. Another way to promote drought-resistant varieties is to promote the so-called NUS, that is non-utilized or underutilized seed of local species and varieties that were displaced in use by the commercial varieties. So always with a view to sustainable use of drought-resistant crops, we are at the moment carrying on the Source Life project in Burkina Faso and Niger to promote the transition towards sustainable and climate-resilient agriculture and food system through the development of local agrobiodiversity to ensure food security and improve the livelihood of local communities. The crop to be considered were chosen in participatory manner with farmers and local stakeholders by paying particular attention to their cultural heritage, nutritional characteristics, and their ability to resist drought. Participatory selection processes were activated with farmers, and collection and sharing of cultivating practices were implemented by farmers with the support of University of Niamey and of Ouagadougou. And traditional agroecological cultivation practices have been implemented in the demonstration field to share the result improvement to production practices and to the quality of products with a large number of farmers. In the future, demonstration action will be activated on processing activities as necessary phase to activate the value chain. But the ability of a soil to support crop and plant development and to help plants to overcome prolonged drought period depends by the ability to retain and keep water amount available to overcome plant needs, even if the critical growth stage falls in the drought period. This, in turn, depends on soil health. Soil quality and soil health refer how well soil does what we want it to do. Soil quality is an important part of sustainable agroecosystem management, and is almost similar to water management. In drought farming system, it's very important to have a good water balance and a better water holding capacity in soil. Keeping the soil bare is a common agricultural practice in Mediterranean region, where semi-arid conditions are associated with rainfall during winter, followed by hot, dry summer. But this practice and the use of herbicides in order to lower production costs have harmful effect on soil properties. And this leads to soil depletion and to soil erosion and to a decreased water holding capacity of soil. Soil erosion affects soil fertility because it removes the fertile soil and leads to mineralization of organic matter. When soil is lost, also fertility is decreased. The annual soil loss due to erosion is influenced by soil structure and organic matter content, even with slope and length of the field. Soil structure and organic matter content that can be influenced by agronomic practices, soil cultivation, and tillage. So, promoting the exchange, transfer, and adoption of integrated soil management and what and water management practices among stakeholders from different countries is a key aspect to preserve soil moisture and allow the restoration of agroecosystem. And this is the focus for React for Med project, that in this case is working on pasture and mixed farming system. For agroecosystem instead, with a prevalent presence of permanent crop, increasing water holding capacity, soil fertility, and soil erosion is even more important. Agricultural practices aimed at contrasting soil erosion and improve soil health do so by taking care of all the aspects that can improve the quality of a soil. And agronomic research has shown the effectiveness of practice based on the ability to improve soil biodiversity, to increase carbon stock in the soil, and to improve the soil structure and water holding capacity. Cover crop, grazing, and also catch crop and hedges can greatly help in this. All the mentioned practices are effective to manage drought farming system and make them more sustainable. But in view of the coming unpredictable weather events and more often recurring droughts, a whole system approach to farm management is needed. And this can come from agroecology. That is a way to promote a proactive approach at farm level to reduce impact of unpredictable events and build local resilience. Because it studies and analyzes agroecosystem, and agroecological practices support the biological processes and drive the recycling of nutrient, biomass, and water within the field system. The word agroecology has different meaning. It is a scientific discipline, a set of agricultural practices, and a movement. As a science, it studies how the different components of the agroecosystem interact. As a set of practice aims to create sustainable agricultural systems that optimize and stabilize yield. As a movement, pursue food sovereignty and new multifunctional role of agriculture. That's why agroecology is intrinsically multidisciplinary, as it makes use of knowledge from agronomy, ecology, environmental science, sociology, economic, and also history. This multidimensional approximation of the term has also been adopted or acquired by international organizations as FAO and by international experts, and reflects both the great complexity of agroecology itself and the emphasis placed by different actors on the functional role that agriculture has in society and in the food system. So, agroecology and agroecological approach is characterized by 10 elements, from diversity to co-creation and sharing, synergy, efficiency. Then, when those 10 elements are present and adopted, they would drive to the transition to a sustainable agriculture and sustainable food system. To operationalize the 10 agroecological elements, the high-level panel of experts has consolidated 13 agroecological principles that, when adopted in the management of a farm, induce a transformation of whole the food system. Agroecological management promotes microbial carbon and therefore potential soil carbon sequestration. In fact, the ratio of microbial carbon and of carbon sequestration in soil that in ecological soil is higher in ecological system than in conventional system. A diverse microbial population devotes more of the available carbon to microbial growth than to maintaining dormant population. And in agricultural practice, this leads to a better turnover of organic matter, where more readily available nutrients for crop. A greater amount of organic matter is used to build stable humus in the soil and improve soil structure and then water holding capacity. Agroecology also follows the theory of closed and semi-closed nutrient cycle in the farm level. The ecological soil management allows the development of spontaneous flora that we do not talk about weed. This spontaneous flora is quite rich and varied, and this spontaneous accompanying flora that grows in the crops is useful because it attracts beneficial organisms, phytophagous organisms, and their antagonists. Their continued presence improves the present and controlled action also of predatory arthropods, keeping pest populations stable. The agroecological practices are related to any aspect of farm management, from crop management to the management of farm structure to the management of landscape element. And they may include the choice of crop, of the choice of drought-resistant varieties, partial temporal distribution of the crop, tillage, cultivation, and soil health management, irrigation, and water management. The effectiveness of the practices is context dependent, but there are some specific steps or criteria that can be adopted to make appropriate choices. The first point is to identify and define the causes of production instability and the critical factors that hinder the functioning of the agroecosystem component, mainly the biotic factors. Then the second is promote cultivation practices capable of optimizing the key processes of the agroecosystem that can help in a correct management. And then we need to identify the biodiversity that at agroecosystem level is important to maintain or increase and implement suitable cultivation practices to promote the precisely desired biodiversity on place. We have to keep in mind that before proposing a solution or a practice, local context and natural resources need to be explored and practice tested to avoid that the farmer could bear the burden and insecurity of the change in production method. In agroecology, there is no one-size-fits-all solution, and the approach to farming system management can be declined in different ways. Some specific ways to manage agroecosystem are permaculture and syntropic farming. Syntropic farming is an agricultural methodology, and it's a way to manage the farming system and achieve intensification of agriculture. It is close to biodynamics or to biointensive farm management. It works on synergy that develops among plant species that are planted and grown together, with canopies and roots strictly interacting and restoring soil health. Permaculture instead is a process of management of the farm structure that aims to create and design a self-supporting human ecosystem that is named food forest. Species are planted providing space for the individual growth of each of them, but close enough to deploy their role in shaping agroecosystem and promoting ecosystem services as pest and disease regulation, counters to soil erosion, management of soil fertility. Those two ways to manage the farm or the ecosystem or the food forest can be solutions to increase farmer resilience, because possibilities could be explored for smallholder farmers applying agroforestry. They might take advantage by the adoption of permaculture. And smallholder farming in need to diversify solution and produce, they could apply syntropic farming to grow vegetable in their farm together with permanent crops. Organic agriculture can be a way to promote agroecology, to open the way to agroecology in some cases, because of the organic activate marketing option for or specific value chain for promoting local products. In our experience, organic agriculture and its certification scheme can be a way to valorize local produce. Moving to organic method of production is not too difficult usually for farmers of Northern African countries, because there's still widespread application of expensive and traditional cultivation practices. We started to work on organic agriculture in this country in the 90s, and now organic agriculture is a reality, and it is still a very good entry point for agroecological transition. An example is that the activities of Mediterranean Network Organic Agriculture, the MOAN, started in 1998, and since 2006 is a network gathering the institution of Ministry of Agriculture of 24 different Mediterranean countries. In line with this development, also the project Bioterritoire, which is going on in Tunisia, aims to identify the development of drivers necessary to implement the 5 biodistricts in pilot site already identified, supporting also the agroecological transition in Tunisia. And this is a picture of a recent event held in Tunisia in June 2023, aiming to map and exchange experiences on agroecology in the country. In last year, also Europe recognized that a more inclusive approach is needed to face rising challenges and is promoting the transition to agroecology also on the basis of scientific evidence of its ability in transforming the food system. For instance, in this relevant paper, others explore 5 different scenarios for future European food system. And the results are that unchanged preference and technology will require an unrealistic taxes and tariff to local people. Large-scale organic farming, if it's meant for exporting, risk increasing the environmental impact in Europe. But EU policy targets can be met when agroecology is combined with a dietary change. So that's why Europe is promoting agroecology at all levels of intervention. And here is the comprehensive strategy with Africa that promotes the agroecology in the framework of cooperation with those countries and to support environmental friendly agricultural practices and agroecology. Because on the other hand, agroecology is already quite practiced in African countries, as this book provides a screening of scientific literature about agroecology in the developing countries in which food and nutrition security and sustainable agriculture represent a focal sector for EU intervention. The majority of the publication focus on small-scale extensive farming system, and in the most Africa, food is produced by smallholder farming. And this publication show a positive impact of agroecological practices on the farming system and an increase of their overall resilience. So in these cases, the climate change challenges require an additional effort, and the move toward a more holistic approach seems to be the best opportunity. At present, I really think that agroecology can be a viable option to restore agroecosystem and to increase productivity, meanwhile building community resilience. This makes it a good track to shape sustainable food system in facing the many challenges impacting our life. Hoping my speech was a nutrition and tasty food for thought, I thank you all for your kind attention.
And thank you to Jenny for her presentation. As this is the final week of the course, next week we'll be in touch with a survey to collect your feedback on how the course went for you. Your feedback is invaluable to us when we're planning future events, so we do really appreciate if you can take the time to complete the short survey. So thank you again to our audience for joining us throughout this series, and also to each of our presenters for sharing their knowledge with us and giving us some food for thought.